Alright guys, how's it going? My name is Nyxre and welcome back to another episode of The Good, The Bad, and The Teemo, where today I'll be covering Support Maokai. As is provided at the beginning of every episode in this series, here's a reference guide for today's video. I provide these for anyone who may be interested in seeing how I went about testing this build for the purpose of making this video. For anyone interested, an Imgur link to this reference guide can be found down in the description below. So let's get started with the good things about Support Maokai. First of all, Maokai provides your team with free wards courtesy of his saplings. Although they don't last that long, they can readily be used to ward areas which are a bit out of your reach, and have the added bonus of slowing anyone who may be coming in for a gank. It's on a low enough cooldown so that in the late game you can have most of the major bushes covered, and those that aren't can be covered by actual wards from your sightstone. Just like most other supports, Maokai brings a ton of crowd control to his team. His point and click twisted advance can root any enemy, allowing for your team to focus them down and kill them. This is effective during the laning phase if your AD carry is capable of quick burst, as it'll either force your target to flash early, or provide your team with an easy kill. Combined with your saplings, you'll be able to provide your team with plenty of both soft and hard crowd control throughout the game. If you find yourself getting pushed under a turret, you can use your twisted advance into Arcane Smash to try and get your enemy under the turret and possibly earn a kill. Support Maokai also has pretty good sustain despite not having a direct heal. This comes from his passive and the Relic Shield proc, as you will be able to execute a few minions to top up on health, while having extra sustain whenever the enemy laners decide to cast a few of their abilities. This amount of sustain won't match that of supports like Soraka or Sona, but it could prove to be advantageous against supports with little or no sustain such as Thresh and Braum. This works into another great thing about Support Maokai, which is that he is very tanky. While you won't be as tanky as you normally would be if you were playing in the top lane, your ultimate will still protect your team from 20% of incoming damage. This can help make any other tanks on your team nearly unkillable, while providing your team's carries a bit of extra resistance from enemy burst. This odd mixture of sustain and tankiness that he provides makes Support Maokai feel like a hybrid between Leona and Alistar. The final good thing that I wanted to cover about Support Maokai is pretty much the primary reason why I'd consider this build in the first place. Maokai really doesn't need that much gold to be effective in the late game. This is because of his sustain, easy to land crowd control, and the utility that he provides to his team. As a support, you'll hardly ever find yourself with a ton of excess gold, so putting Maokai in this role only makes sense. You may not find yourself winning lane all the time, but by the time you reach the team fighting stages of the game, Support Maokai can be just as impactful as several other more popular support picks. There are a few bad things about Support Maokai of course, or else everyone would already be picking it. One of the issues being that Maokai will lose lane to ranged supports. This is primarily because supports like Annie or Morgana can easily harass Maokai without using spells, which will keep Maokai's passive from proccing. In these sorts of matchups, you'll have to play very passive while trying to use your saplings for harass, or you can go for an all-in if you have a high mobility AD carry on your team. Building off my previous point, Maokai is also weak against hypercarry AD carries who rely on their auto attacks for damage. Maokai is great against casters like Lucian who will constantly be proccing your passive, but he is weak against AD carries like Caitlyn who can stay back in lane and prevent your passive from being of any use. You're probably much better off not picking Maokai into the support role if you find yourself against any of these long range opponents. And finally, moving on to the Teemo, this is a section that covers the worst things about the specific build, and covers the reasons why you would typically not play Maokai as a support. The biggest problem I ran into while playing Support Maokai was just how expensive his mana costs are. Because you're playing support, you won't be able to purchase as many mana items as you would if you were playing him in the top lane. Your ultimate in particular will take most, if not all of your mana in the late game if you use it for its entire duration. This could prove costly if you enter a team fight with anything less than full mana, so you should generally try to avoid large 5v5 team fights if you've already used a handful of your other abilities. The other major issue isn't really one that has to do with Maokai directly, but it has to do with the fact that Support Maokai is basically a worse version of Alistar. Alistar is far more tanky into the late game and can provide your team with even more peel than Maokai can. He also has a small heal which is better than Maokai's because it also heals his team. So while Maokai's support itself isn't all that bad, the reason it isn't picked is primarily because there are other supports which do the exact same thing, just better. But that's all I have for Support Maokai. Like I said, it isn't really all that bad of an idea, it's just that there are other supports which outclass him overall. I still had a good bit of fun trying this build out, so you can feel free to try it out for yourself and let me know what you think. Feel free to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and subscribe if you are new around here and would like to see more. If you didn't like the video, feel free to leave a dislike. All I ask is that you leave a comment with what you believe I could have done better, so that my future content can continue to improve. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys in this video. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.